The average new car loses roughly 20% of its value in the first year. A new electric vehicle can lose 30 to 40%. And in some cases, a 3-year-old EV is worth less than half of what the original buyer paid. That is not a market fluctuation. That is a design decision. There is a specific reason resale values on electric vehicles are collapsing, and it is not range anxiety or charging infrastructure. It is one component, a component that costs between $10,000 and $22,000 to replace, depending on the vehicle. A component that most buyers never think about until it is too late. It is the battery pack. And the way it is built is the core of the problem. When consumers and automotive journalists talk about EV batteries, they almost always talk about the pack as a single unit. How many kilowatt hours, how many miles of range, how fast it charges. What they almost never talk about is what happens inside that pack when individual cells begin to degrade. Most modern EV battery packs are not designed to be serviced at the cell level. They are designed to be replaced as a complete unit. iFixit, the repair research organization that publishes repairability scores for consumer electronics, has documented this across multiple EV platforms. The pack goes in as a sealed system and comes out the same way. That means when 5% of your cells fail, you do not replace 5% of your battery. You replace 100% of it. This is not an engineering accident. It is a margin decision. To understand why, you need to understand how a pack is actually built. A typical EV battery contains hundreds or even thousands of individual cells. Those cells are grouped into modules. The modules are grouped into a pack. In earlier EV designs, those modules were accessible and, in some cases, individually replaceable. A trained technician could identify a failed module and swap it out for a fraction of the cost of a full pack replacement. That architecture has quietly disappeared across much of the industry. Tesla moved to a structural battery pack design with its 4680 cell format, integrating the pack directly into the vehicle floor. This made the vehicle lighter and stiffer. It also made the battery nearly impossible to service without specialized equipment. A detailed teardown analysis published by Sandy Munro and Associates, widely cited in the automotive engineering press, described the structural battery as brilliant from a manufacturing standpoint and an almost complete obstacle to repair. General Motors introduced the Ultium platform with a modular architecture that was marketed, in part, on serviceability. But third-party repair data has shown that the cost to access and replace even a single Ultium module runs to thousands of dollars in labor alone, before any parts costs. The module warranty coverage from GM dealers does not extend to out-of-warranty vehicles, and independent shops lack the battery management tools to do the work safely. What this means for a consumer buying a used EV is straightforward. If the battery is degraded, you face a replacement cost that can exceed the market value of the vehicle. iFixit has published repairability scores for several EV models. Scores in the 2 to 4 range out of 10 are common. The reason cited is almost always the same: sealed pack construction, proprietary battery management software, and lack of available cell-level parts. The financial incentive behind this architecture is not subtle. In 2023, Bloomberg NEF estimated the global EV battery replacement market at several billion dollars annually, growing rapidly as first-generation EVs age out of their warranty periods. Manufacturers who control the replacement supply chain capture that revenue directly. Independent shops that cannot source cells or modules cannot compete. The original equipment manufacturer becomes the only viable service provider. Volkswagen Group, which has invested more than $20 billion in its EV transition, according to its own published financial disclosures, has structured its battery supply through a joint venture called PowerCo. The stated goal is vertical integration of cell production. The practical effect is that Volkswagen controls the cell supply for Volkswagen vehicles. An independent repair shop cannot walk into a parts supplier and buy a replacement Volkswagen cell. The supply chain does not exist for them. Control the cell supply, and you control the entire service economy around the vehicle. There is a second problem that compounds the first. Battery degradation is not linear, and it is not always disclosed accurately at the point of sale. Recurrent, a company that aggregates real-world battery health data from tens of thousands of EVs, has published analysis showing significant variance in battery degradation rates across the same model year of the same vehicle. Factors include charging habits, climate exposure, and software management. A used EV with 50,000 miles might have 92% battery health or 74% battery health. And without a state of health readout from the vehicle's battery management system, a buyer cannot tell the difference by looking at it. Some manufacturers provide state of health data to consumers. Many do not provide it in a standardized, accessible format. Nissan, whose Leaf model used an air-cooled battery pack in early generations, faced documented degradation complaints from owners in hot climates. The NHTSA complaint database contains hundreds of records from Leaf owners describing rapid capacity loss. Nissan eventually added active thermal management to later Leaf versions, but owners of the early models had no recourse beyond full pack replacement. The average quoted price for a replacement Nissan Leaf battery pack, based on dealer quotes collected by consumer automotive forums and independent repair databases, has ranged from $5,000 to $8,500, depending on year and configuration. For a vehicle that may be worth $8,000 to $12,000 on the used market, that replacement cost makes the math brutal. This is not a problem at the edges of the market. It is the central valuation risk of every used EV transaction happening right now. So, what should a buyer actually do? First, insist on a state of health report before any used EV purchase. Several third-party tools exist for this. Plug in America, the EV advocacy organization, has published guidance on how to request or obtain a state of health reading from dealers and private sellers. A vehicle below 80% state of health should be treated as having a compromised asset at the core of its value. Second, look for vehicles with active thermal management systems. Passive or air-cooled packs degrade faster in extreme climates. The presence of active liquid cooling is not a guarantee, but it is a meaningful differentiator. Hyundai and Kia battery platforms, based on repair data and degradation studies published in the trade press, have shown more consistent state of health retention than some competing platforms. Third, check the remaining warranty. Federal regulations require EV manufacturers to warrant the battery pack to at least 70% capacity for 8 years, or 100,000 miles. But that warranty runs from the original purchase date, not the resale date. A 3-year-old used EV has 5 years left on that federal minimum. A 6-year-old vehicle has 2 years left. Know where you are in that window before you sign anything. Fourth, avoid any platform that has no third-party repair ecosystem. If the only entity that can service the battery is the manufacturer's dealer network, you are not buying a vehicle. You are entering a service dependency that has no competition and no ceiling on cost. The next video covers something that connects directly to this. Most EV warranties have language in them that almost nobody reads before signing. That language can void your coverage in ways that have nothing to do with how you drive. Before you buy, you need to know what is actually in that document. If you want to know what manufacturers do not explain at the point of sale, this channel is where that information lives. Subscribe, and you will get it before you need it. The battery is the car. And right now, most buyers are not being told what they are actually buying.